Hello, this is Haiku going through the Murders at Karlov Manor card set review. Now focusing on the green cards. So I'm most hyped for this color. We'll get to the card. So Airtight Alibi, 3 mana. Basically, it's a more like a combat trick plus a protection spell all combined. Unfortunately, I think the 3 mana is really what holds it back. It does a lot for what it is, but I don't think that it's going to be a viable kind of strategy to use. Bite Down on Crime. It's a reasonable removal spell. Obviously, if you have to be collecting evidence to make it reasonable, but I think the combination of Savage Swipe for two power creatures and Ram Through for creatures with trample is going to be overall better than this. The fact that it's not a fight and it's a bite is pretty good, but I think it's not quite the power level of the green removal spells that we have. Fanatical Strength, just a combat trick for limited, nothing for constructed. Eavesdropper, another great limited card, but for constructed, not quite playable. If this effect was a permanent +1/+1 counter, maybe, but right now we have a 4 mana 3/3 that draws the card on ETB rather than having to pay an additional 2. I think that's better, more efficient than potentially getting +1/+1s later in the game. Nervous Gardener. This would have been good if we didn't get so many land cyclers with every set. So now that we've gotten so many land cyclers, this is not as necessary. So getting a card with a basic land type. Of note, it does hit all of the Eldraine spell lands. Of note that the Mystic Sanctuary is legal on in Arena for Historic Pauper, but this is, I think, a little bit overcosted for being able to tutor up your Mystic Sanctuary. Pick Your Poison is a great card, very, very flexible. So basically dealing with sacrificing a bridge. Most of the time you're going to be nailing their bridge, indestructible land, and doing that on turn 1 is awesome. I guess it would be they would have played a land, so either your turn 1 or their turn 1 on your turn 2. But then the flexibility of hitting enchantments and then also creatures with flying is just awesome. I think the second mode is probably not going to be used as much as the 2 other modes, but the artifact and creature with flying modes are great. This might even see main deck play in Historic Pauper. In all the other forms of Pauper, there's not so many bridges played, so I don't think you can main deck this. But very, very nice card for green decks to have in the sideboard. Riverboat Maverick. This guy is kind of cool because it helps with graveyard synergies, but I think we have better options. Surveil 2 is some cards in the graveyard, but I think there's better options. The fact that it plays with other copies of itself, where if you throw other copies of itself into the graveyard, then they can do something from the grave, but it's just overall not enough. Obviously, at 1 mana for a 1/1, it can't be that much, but WotC's always trying to tweak these 1/1s for 1 to make them slightly better. I just don't think it's quite there yet. Slime Against Humanity. So this is the best green card, and this is the best card, common of this is the best green common, and this is the best common of the whole set. This is really going to make waves on Arena where we don't have as efficient removal. And where I see it really changing the meta is because it's making tokens. It's going to be really, it's going to bring back a renaissance of blue unsummon effects. So Mana War, Repeal, all of these cards are going to get much better. So it's going to be really interesting because those cards have been very, very terrible because the meta has had a lot of ETB value creatures that you don't want to be bouncing for more, giving your opponent even more value. But now we have a legitimate target to just nix with the unsummon. And unsummon, in general, unsummon effects are going to be actually really good against this deck. Now, this deck, I think, is going to be house anyways. And that's why I think the meta is really going to shift to these green-based slime decks that are self-milling to grow their slimes on their cast, and then basically casting slimes, one slime a turn for the rest of the game after they get up to a certain size, and then they just keep getting bigger and bigger. The fact that they have trample puts a lot of pressure on the opponent. So basically, these are going to be about a turn 6 goldfish, depending on how much self-mill that they can have in the deck, which puts a lot of pressure on the format. So the other kind of card that deals with this is Spell Pierce. So Spell Pierce for 1 mana can deal with a 3 mana card, sorcery speed, pretty efficiently. So I think we're going to have a return of blue tempo decks. I think actually mono blue tempo might be the way to go against this deck, just so you don't have to deal with the tap lands, because normally you splash blue or black to get some removal, but if you can just use Unsummon as your removal, I think you're fine. So yeah, this is going to be a really good card. I think the home for this, the level 1 home, was mono green self mill with the slimes, but I think actually you want to go blue green so you can beat the mirror. So blue green is going to be slightly slower, but you get actually additional self mill with Philagi Archaeologists that can actually find more copies of your slime and put more into the yard. And then all of the green mill creatures that find lands to hit your land drops. So then you're able to just slime for every turn, and sometimes slime twice. And then the nice part about those other creatures that self-mill you is they give you Edict fodder against Tithing Blade decks. So Tithing Blade decks are going to really struggle if you properly prepare your slime deck to have random 1/1s to sack. So I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on the meta, which I think is going to be a good thing. I think this deck has enough responses, like I said, with Unsummon effects, with Spell Pierce effects. And then if not, you can just Edict, you would just have to have a removal spell every single turn, or most turns, and kind of race that, which is possible. It's not an easy deck to beat. I think it's going to be basically tier 1 from the start on Arena. We just don't have enough efficient removal to really keep up with whatever, a 5/5, 6/6, 7/7 for 3 mana. But it will be very interesting to play with and against this. I'm probably going to start playing with it and just seeing how busted it can be. And then if it's not too busted, then I'll start trying to counter it with the ninja decks. That's where I'd go to first to deal with this. But it's going to be fun. I already have a deck built, Simic deck. I posted the deck list that I would kind of try day 1 using slime, and you'll see some videos of me playing with it that day 1. What's nice is on Arena, you only have to collect 4 copies of this, and then you can play any amount in your deck, which is great. So that's another nice part of Arena play. They went this way, solid ramp cell with a cantrip attached to it. I don't think there's any home for this right now. And especially, I think most green decks are going to be slime decks now. They definitely don't want this card. Topiary Panther, a kind of cool cycling card, not constructed playable. We just have much better effects than this now. Vengeful Creeper, a kind of a cool ETB or a play on the ETB destroy an artifact or enchantment. I think that we have enough effects now with the Bargain Oof and the Changeling Mass Vandal, so that we don't need these effects more expensive. I think those are viable enough ways to turn them on that those are better. And those Exile, which makes them much better than Destroy. Vita Geisling Inspector. Owlex likes this card because its stat line of a 2/4 if you collect evidence is pretty good. Plus, gaining 2 incidental life is okay. I think this is just too slow for our format, especially now that we have the Ooze deck kind of beating down people. I don't think green decks really can keep up by doing this kind of nonsense. And then the last green card, Tunnel Tipster, such a cute art. But as we'll talk about with the morph creatures or the disguised creatures, the face down creatures, they're just not really good playable ones that would kind of buff this up. And you really need at least two activations of flipped up creatures to really get this going. And that's not going to happen unless you're playing really terrible cards. So, unfortunate, cute card, but not playable. So those were the green cards. Obviously, the standout is the slime deck, but Pick Your Poison gets a nice shout out as an honorable mention for a very, very flexible sideboard card that actually is flexible enough that it might see main deck play. But yep, slime time, everyone. Let's enjoy it. See ya.